Hey guys, what's going on? I've been meaning to make another one of these videos, but it's been quite a while since I made the last. Basically what I've done to my car, which is the car you see behind me. So this is my 1996 Accord. I am that Accord guy, as the name suggests, and this is my channel. So it's mainly about this car. I do have other random repair videos placed in the channel. Otherwise, those are just to help people out, and those do get me a good amount of views and a little bit of profit as well. Whereas these videos are mainly my hobby videos on the car that I make. And when the car started out, it was it was green. There was no clear coat on the entire car, and it was completely bone stock. It was a 186,000 mile 1996 Honda Accord LX with the 2.2 F22 B2, which is the non-VTEC version, and it is a stick shift. So that is one thing that was my criteria, and otherwise this car was totally trashed on the inside and out when I got it. I went through and I detailed the entire interior pretty well, and you can see that the interior is not in the worst shape. Everything looks pretty decent on it. I did do subtle stuff. I have all my gauges in here because the car is turbocharged, and I've got a whole bunch of videos on that entire build process. If you guys are interested in seeing how to turbo your car, I have a video on all the turbo parts and more detailed section of that. But this is just going to be the broad overview of the entire car. So essentially when I first got it, I started with the detail. I pressure washed everything in the car from the seats to the carpet. I took all the carpet out. I cleaned all the steel, everything. It was full of like dog hair and dirt and just material. I mean, this car is over 20 years old, so it's had a lot of crud built up in here, and I always like to do that to any old car that I purchase. Get all the old person's grime out of there, and anything in here now is now my grime, and it doesn't gross me out nearly as much. So we got this thing all stripped down when I first got it. Cleaned it all out, cleaned all the seats up. Most of the stains even came out of the carpet and stuff like that, other than a couple of bleached areas. But I do want to dress up the interior of this car with a couple of racing seats and maybe dye the carpet. Change up door panels. I don't know if I want to do leather seats in the back, or I don't know what I'll do with the interior, but that's definitely a future upgrade. As of right now, the latest is the paint job. So the car, like I said, had no clear coat on it when I got it. Yeah, the paint was all gone everywhere. So just, really sanded the entire car down, and then I filled in any of the dents that I found from sanding it, and then I went ahead and hit everything with primer on separate occasions. I kind of primed different sections of the car. I did body work. I did a little bit of rust repair on the other side. There's there was a little rust area underneath that you couldn't really see, but it was coming through the underside. There was just a little bubble, so I cut the whole area out that was affected and replaced it by panel bonding. I also filled in all of the molding holes on the side of the car that were here. I filled all those holes in because I ripped all the moldings off, and I wanted to have that clean look of not having any moldings on the car, which I'm very happy with, and you really can't tell that there ever were any moldings on the car, so I'm definitely stoked about the way that came out. That was worth it. It was a lot of work. I did learn a lot about panel bond and doing that whole thing, and then I did it on the fenders as well. There were the holes there too, so that came out really good. And yeah, I just went through one step at a time. As far as body kit parts, the fiberglass side skirts I made myself. What I actually did was I took pieces of wood and stapled it to the bottom of the car here, and I got a bunch of tin foil and wrapped it around the shape that I had made, and then I wrapped my fiberglass mold material, which was fleece, over that. So I had like fleece draped over all of this material here, which sort of made all the edges and everything, and that is what I fiberglassed over with my fiberglass resin. And then I went ahead and popped that off once it's set, and then I reinforced it from the inside with fiberglass mat, and I really made this thing super strong. Like, you could probably kick this thing and it wouldn't break. So these fiberglass skirts are really strong, and they're molded over the factory plastic skirts. So downside is they're kind of heavy, and that's maybe the only thing in hindsight I wish I had not done, is made them so heavy. But at the same time, they're definitely gonna withstand the test of time, and they're bolted on there really good as well. I got them self-tapered, and the OEM clips are in up top, so they're pretty well attached. As far as the front, I have it's a replica Liberal grill, and I still want to do something about painting the inner grill insert, maybe painting that black or something. But the bumper is OEM, and I have just a couple of cheap eBay halo lights there and some clear turn signals. And these are the OEM headlights that I sanded. I think I sanded them with something like, I don't know, 1500 or 2000, and then I went ahead and hit them with some clear coat. And I've yet to wet sand and buff them, but I did hit them with clear coat. It maybe buffed them a little bit, but I never sanded them. But they're holding up pretty good. I got a little chip right here, but I think I want to build some custom lights for this thing, and that's definitely going to be a future project of mine. I want to do some projector housing lights, so maybe buy aftermarket and then retrofit projectors or LEDs or some sort of cool halos or something like that. I think that would really set it off and make it cool. Maybe do a demon eye. I've been thinking about that. But anyway, these markers are just also cheap. They have little LED bulbs in them. And then the front lip is an eBay lip that I had purchased off of eBay, but nobody really makes this anymore. I can't find this lip anywhere, so unfortunately you're gonna have to go elsewhere to look for that if you're looking for this lip, because I don't think that they make it, or it's not too available. There are similar ones out there, but anyway, yeah, I'll show you guys the engine setup as well. But over and back here we've got just a replica lip here, and this, or I'm sorry, replica spoiler, which is Mugen spoiler. And you know, I always like this spoiler. They have like the crazier one that like comes down to here and has the emblem hole in the middle, which I do like that too, but I wanted to rock no emblem, and I think this is a nice clean look here with this spoiler, so I definitely dig this one. And as far as the lip, it's a work rear lip, or it's a works replica as well. So you know, you have the fiberglass part that comes, and it's always, you know, not in the best shape, but you manage to make it fit and you manage to smooth it out, and you kind of got to do your own body work to make everything look nice, but that's just part of the fiberglass process. This spoiler had all sorts of waves in it. Smoothed it out for the most part. It still needs to be final buffed because it still has some sanding scratches in it, but yeah, I'm waiting on that for the clear coat to be extra hard like the whole rest of the car was, before I give it that final buff out. But anyway, the rear bumper stock. I had a big dent in here when I first got it, but I ended up trying to fix that. Bumper's still a little bit out of whack, to be honest, and I wish I had bent it a little bit better, but I live and learn. It doesn't look too bad, but I still have to go through and tweak all these things to fine tune everything. The rear glass needs to be retinted. I also have to figure out what I'm going to do about the molding here on the rear glass, because you really should put the molding in when you put the glass in. So I may put a new rear glass in this because it is scratched over here, and I don't know if I'm gonna end up doing that, but I might do that and put the molding in so that it looks really good and OEM back here. Otherwise, I have trim to put on the other side, just like on this side, and I painted all my trim black, and I did tint the windows myself back in the day. They came out pretty decent, except for the rear glass that I've never been able to accomplish. Yeah, these side ones came out pretty decent. I've contemplated having the windshield tinted as well. I'm not sure if I want to do that. Just a light tint. So the car is sitting on Function and Form Type 2 coilovers, which are the stiffer variant. It's more a track version. I wanted to do that because this is like a weekend car for me. You know, I don't really care if the suspension is stiff. I don't daily it. I'm not worried about, you know, my back hurting on long rides or something like that. It is what it is. This car beats you up, but I enjoy it because it handles like a champ, and I have adjustable rebound and stiffness and everything, and fully adjustable ride height. So the coilovers did set me back $1,000, but that's just what it is. You need to spend money on aftermarket suspension for it to be nice. I wish that they offered, you know, some higher quality race brands. I know Function and Form is not the best brand for coilovers, but you know, they've served me pretty well. I have no complaints about the ride. It's nice and stiff. It's not really bouncy at the ride height that I have right now, which may look a little bit high to some of you. I know you guys like to dump your cars, but for me personally, I can't go much lower just because of my downpipe. It does want to hit the ground at a certain point. You guys probably won't be able to see it, but it is pretty low. So I would prefer to put the car on some larger tires, lose a little bit of that wheel well gap while maintaining some ground clearance. But that's pretty much it as far as suspension goes. I didn't really do anything crazy other than rebuilding the whole front end with all new suspension components, as far as like upper control arms to tie rods, inners and outers, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I do have traction bar, innovative traction bar on it, which is a big dollar item, but it does keep it from wheel hopping, which hopefully should save my stock transmission, because I didn't want to blow a transmission and find out the hard way. And now when this thing spins, it just spins straight up. It doesn't even wheel hop at all, which is super nice. So yeah, that's all fine and good. The one of the nicer things about this car is it just takes a beating, you know. I beat the crap out of this thing on the street. I don't race it or drag it or anything like that, but I'll show you guys the under the hood setup, which I've shown before. It has been one of the most insane things I've ever done to a vehicle, to be honest. So when I first started this car, I kind of had a vision for it to be like a crazy show car, but that also kind of got down on the street. And I think that I've come pretty close to achieving that, because yeah, this is the first thing that I tackled here, was the engine bay and getting the engine running like I wanted and turbocharged and all that stuff. So this did take me quite a while. When I first got the vehicle, it ran pretty good, but it definitely needed some help. I did like a few things like valve lash adjustment, and I painted a couple of things like the valve cover, changed a bunch of seals to try to get everything all perfect, and I didn't plan on actually tearing the motor down at all. So I was driving it, and then I decided that, you know, I think maybe I should redo the head gasket before we end up boosting it, because I would like to do ARP head studs, and I'd rather do it correctly than by doing them one at a time. So I took the head off, and I realized the head was super corroded inside. I got videos of it, but I assume nobody ever coolant flushed this thing, and the cylinder head was super messed up. Brought it to a machine shop, and they said that they would go for it and they would try it, and they did machine it and they decked it, and they said it would probably still work. So I said, you know what, let's ship it. I did that, and I put it back together with a new head gasket. I didn't deck the block or anything like that. I left it all in the car, and you know, I put it all back together. And then since then, it burned a crap ton of oil. It burned so much oil, guys, and it was driving me crazy. I was very worried that you know, this car was not going to be what I needed it to be. You know, I didn't want to have a car that was puking smoke, so it was just such a bummer to me to have that going on. So I was trying everything I could to fix it. That might be where some of you guys have seen the Marvel Mystery Oil video. That was one attempt I had at fixing the oil burning. Did not work, unfortunately, but I do believe that the issue was the piston rings were completely seized up with oil and just varnish, and you know, never changing the oil has, you know, takes its toll on a vehicle, especially over 180 something thousand miles. So I think me taking it apart and trying to clean the tops of the pistons and have some of that carbon wash down and wash the rings down, or maybe spraying a little brake clean on a rag or onto the pistons themselves. I'm not sure. Maybe I possibly might have sprayed brake clean onto the piston rings, and I messed up the whole ring setup. I mean, I still had compression. The car still ran fine, but I don't know if I washed down the walls and then maybe the rings restuck down there or something like that, and I think that was the case, and that was the issue. So I had to rebuild, and I rebuilt the motor. I took it all apart. I took everything out, and what I ended up doing was putting the same bearings back in it, which are 180, 190,000 mile bearings, and because of that, I think this car is perfect for boost, because the bearings weren't worn too bad, and it's all matched to the crank and everything. This has been a healthy running engine assembly for years, and I think why mess with that sort of setup? So I put it back together. I honed the piston walls, and I put new rings, you know, new piston rings, and I gapped them for boost, which means a large gap. And due to all of that stuff right there, I think that this thing is a super healthy motor that runs on, you know, 10 plus, sometimes almost 15 pounds of boost with no problems really. And the only real thing that you have to do when you run that kind of boost is make some sort of catch can for the engine, which I had these two elbows put onto the valve cover here that run to a vented catch can back there, which does fill up because this thing makes a decent amount of crankcase pressure with the ring gap that I have. But in reality, it's a really solid setup. And the amount of power that you make on 10 to 15 psi in this engine on 93 pump gas, but mind you, I'm not even on E85. I would like to be, but they don't offer it in my area. Regardless, this motor is totally stout and totally able to handle that on a nice safe tune. And you know, as long as you don't try to rev it crazy high or anything, it's all stock valve train, all stock everything, basically just head studs and a head gasket, and that is it. I mean, other than that, it's basically stock. So this thing has really done, like, I don't know, it's really surprised me with the amount of durability and boostability that this thing has for a motor that nobody really turbos, which is crazy to me because this thing is such a good, it's like a D series build, but I didn't even build the motor. Like, who knows, D series wise, you could probably make, you know, 10 to 15 psi as well, but it doesn't make as much power because it's not a big motor. Like, this is a 2.2 liter. This is a pretty large motor to turbocharge on that sort of boost pressure on this turbo, which mind you is a 6063, which is a pretty big turbo. The inducer side is a 60 and the exhaust side is a 63 because it's a pretty large engine, and it's just a simple log style manifold with an eBay wastegate, and it's an eBay turbo. It's a CX Racing turbo, if you guys are wondering. And I just have sent an oil feed from back here, and that oil feed comes from a sandwich plate that I have on the back that the filter screws into, and that's pretty much it. You just feed this thing some oil and you get a set of return up, and that goes into the pan, welded a bung onto the pan, and this guy has an AN10 line that's not kinked, goes right into the pan, returns the oil. You get good oil flow to it, and this thing's gonna last. It's a journal bearing turbo. It's nothing crazy, nothing fancy, like $230 turbo. I mean, it's like, this stuff is not that expensive, guys. You know, like, people are buying turbos for thousands of dollars online. You don't have to spend that kind of money to do this stuff. You know, it's just, it's really easier than that, honestly. And this thing has been a reliable setup. Yeah, I've only put a few thousand miles on it because it's not my daily, but, you know, I guess if I had to daily it, I think this car would be pretty reliable just because of, you don't really change much about it, especially if you don't beat on it on the daily. It's going to drive somewhat like a normal car. I mean, even if the turbo fails, you just buy another $230 turbo. It's really not the end of the world, in my opinion. So, future upgrades that I plan to do with this car, I definitely want to build myself some sort of intake box, which would involve relocating the intercooler piping, which I do want to do. I think I want to try to send this thing straight back 90 out of the intercooler, maybe get a bigger intercooler, come straight back and up through here and right up to the intake, as well as get this thing into some sort of nice air box that only sucks cold air from the headlight and fender area. That way I'm not sucking the hot engine air, because the engine bay temps in this thing do get relatively warm. And I would like to backdoor it here too. And I always thought about maybe going down low if I could clock the turbo the other way, but I do think either the alternator would be in the way or something. I don't know if I could maybe shoot it down and around, and it would be cool to have this pipe not on top, and therefore it wouldn't collect so much heat from up here because the turbo setup is pretty hot. I think that would help with IATs, but this is a tough engine bay unless I did like a half radiator setup, which I definitely could do. This car doesn't have too much of a cooling issue, but having the full radiator is also nice for a street car, because you know, you could be sitting in traffic for a while and you know this thing's going to have great cooling. Anyway, future upgrades include, I got an intake manifold sitting right here actually, and this is off of a different engine here. This is one that I got off of, I believe it was a F23, which is the non-ULEV one. It's the F23A1. So that is the better one as far as flow and everything like that goes. Throttle body, I'm either going to use mine or just buy like a Skunk 2 one. But I hear that bigger is, you know, not always necessary, especially with turbo applications. It's not really going to make a huge difference. So maybe I'll even stick with my throttle body. But this manifold is supposed to flow better. They say it may be worth 20 horsepower on a naturally aspirated application. So I'm thinking in my application it could be worth more, maybe 20 or 30 on a boosted application. Airflow is like a big thing, so if we can get more airflow. The intake runners are definitely much fatter than mine. I can see right here, they're just not nearly as big as the one on that. So hopefully we can get that one going on there and have a bigger chamber, be able to make more boost up high or whatever the case is. I don't know, hopefully better airflow anyway. But that's a future project. I want to dress that thing up and paint it. Maybe you guys let me know what color you think it would look good. I'm thinking about doing something other than silver. But yeah, that's pretty much most of the setup on this car, guys. If you have any specific questions, feel free to let me know. It is getting cold now, so I'm going to struggle to make a little bit of content, but I'm going to try for you guys. I got some other cars I'm going to be working on pretty soon, winter stuff, projects, but yeah, this car, I won't be driving it as much now since it's winter time, but when I can sneak it out, you better believe I will, and I'll try to take you guys along for the ride for some more pulls and some more tuning videos. I still want to do two-step stuff with it, but I don't want to make this video too long-winded, but I figured I would just do a general overview of all of the stuff that I've done. I guess tuning as well, but I did make a little bit of a video about tuning, and you guys can check that out too. But yeah, basically it's tuned on Honda Tuning Suite currently. I do all the tuning myself. I've got behind here is a mess. I have my fuse box, and I also have my ECU down there, which is a chip P28, and I use an ostrich that connects to my laptop, and a Motes Hue log, and that is what data logs for me, and that all goes to here onto Honda Tuning Suite, where it's all tuned. And I will make more videos of tuning, which some people have requested, and that will be coming up as soon as I can get out there on a nice day. I'll do a little bit of tuning with some fueling and messing around with more of that stuff. So stay tuned and subscribe if you guys want to see more of this car. I'm working on getting everything fine-tuned. The channel is gaining traction, and I'm excited. So thank you guys for watching, and I appreciate it. If you made it all the way to the end, please consider subscribing, because we got more to do on this car and more projects overall. So it's going to be fun. You guys will enjoy it. And yeah, I appreciate you watching. Thanks. Peace.